All right, welcome in to Carps Corner. And sorry, a little time off. Went to Vegas with the family, enjoyed it. With the wife, with some friends. Um, had a conference out there, had some things to get done. Had some fun though, enjoyed it. But it's good to be back, and it's good to be here with you. I was going to bring all the equipment out there, but it was going to be a lot, and frankly, time wise, I had stuff going on and wasn't able to do it. But back here in the saddle and back here getting this done. So excited. Ohio State, the Buckeyes, have their first road test of the season. 5 games at home, and are finally going on the road. And for those of you wondering, it seems like a lot. Yeah, it does seem like a lot because 5 consecutive home games, whether it's the start of season or in the middle of any season, is a heck of a lot. So first 5 games all at home, now ultimately going on the road. They'll be heading up to East Lansing to take on the Spartans. A game at the beginning of the season that you probably had circled. Thought, okay, this is going to be a Michigan State team that's going to come in here, or going to or come in this season after winning 11 games last year behind Kenneth Walker III, played really well. Peyton Thorne did a great job at quarterback. The receiving core was pretty good. Defensively, Michigan State wasn't great last year, but they were able to outscore some people. They beat Michigan, in a big one, and found a way to get some things done and win some football games last year. And you felt really good about the direction everything was headed. Well, this year they came in, Sparty was ranked in the teens, and after a couple of weeks, I believe they even climbed all the way up to 11. They were 2-0. Thinking, all right, this is going to be a really nice Buckeye schedule. They got Notre Dame at home. You've got Wisconsin at home. And then you're going to have Penn State and Michigan State on the road. And then you have Michigan at home. You get Iowa at home. Like this, so Michigan State, I thought, okay, that'll be one of the biggest road tests. Happy Valley, always another big road test. Thought Happy Valley, maybe not as quite as intimidating as normal, given the fact that Penn State was going to be a big noon kick, most likely. And with that, no wide out, not at night, be a little easier environment. So this game for Sparty, thought, okay, maybe there's potential for it to be a night game against a top 10 Michigan ranked team, which would have really helped the Buckeye schedule. But unfortunately for Michigan State, for Spartans fans, they gave Mel Tucker a massive contract last year, but this year hasn't really performed to the level of expectation that people thought. And, Mel did a great job last year. He built it with transfers, blended in some of his own guys. This year, they've got to continue to get this thing rolling again and got to get it headed in the right direction. But after the second week, you felt like, okay, it looked like the wheels were starting to come off a little bit. They win their first 2, and then they head out to Washington. They're ranked 11th. That, okay, this is a good chance to go out there and get a Pac-12, a Power 5 non-conference victory. But unfortunately for Michigan State, there were other plans out there, and the Huskies beat them up pretty good, lost 39-28. And if it wasn't for some scoring in the fourth quarter, the game really didn't even appear to be that close. But I couched it, knowing that I think the Big Ten, their last win, or one of their only wins over Pac-12 opponents on the road, Ohio State beat Washington, I want to say 07, possibly maybe 08, one of those 2 years, when Ohio State went out there and were against Locker and were able to get a victory in that. So that was like one of the last times that they were able to get it done. Big Ten has struggled mightily. So I couched that as another out, saying, you know what, not the end of the day. Not the end of the world. Michigan State lost to it could be a pretty good Washington. They lost on the road. It's a cross-country flight. There's a lot of mitigating factors, the time change, things that in the NFL, you understand. Those things happen. Like, it happens all the time. So you don't get the benefit of the doubt. But for college kids, you think that could impact them a little bit more. And you couch that loss. Then all of a sudden they get Minnesota at home. And PJ Fleck and the Gophers come in there and beat the doors off of them. And I'm thinking, okay, it's 34-7. Minnesota, I picked as a dark horse to win the West. Wisconsin's falling apart. Nebraska isn't any good. Iowa can't score. Thought Minnesota, you know what? They're the prince that was promised out of the West. They're a really good football team. And with that, okay, this is going to be a situation where, okay, they got beat up. Now they're 2-2. And we'll have to find out what this Maryland team ultimately is, or this Michigan State team ultimately is. And then they go on the road to Maryland, and Maryland handles them by 2 scores. So now you begin to think about this Michigan State team as we're almost to the halfway point of the season. You feel like you know what they are a little bit. And what they are isn't great. They lost some of that offensive magic that they had last year. And on top of that, their defense has never really grown the way that it should have. So you come into this game, you don't really feel all that worried if you're Ohio State. But a couple things, like if you go look at this over the past 25 years, past 20 years even, 3 of the biggest upsets in Ohio State history had come at the hands of Sparty. When you start thinking about this, you think about the win in 15, you think about the win in 98, you think about the Big Ten championship game in 2013, especially in 2015, that Ohio State team was far more talented. Same thing in 98. So there was, and even I think in 13, one of Urban's first years here, second season, the team wasn't great, but you know what? Thought there was no way they would lose. Now, those Michigan State teams are more talented. They had NFL players on them. This one, I don't know if it has that same number of guys, as far as guys that can go to the next level and really play. So those are 3 huge, stunning defeats for Ohio State teams in 98, probably cost them a national championship. 2013, cost them a shot at a national championship and a chance to go play Notre Dame. And I think everybody acknowledges they would have probably beat that Notre Dame team in 2013. Or that was 2012. But in 2013, have a chance to potentially go play and see if you get to a national championship. And then in 2015, you ultimately look at it and you think, that's a team that was one of the best teams Ohio State had in a long time, talent-wise, loaded with NFL talent and a number of players that were going to go play at the next level, from Michael Thomas to Joey Bosa to Zeke Elliott. I mean, dudes all over the place. Offensive line that's littered with talent. Guys everywhere. Raekwon McMillan, it had dudes that are elite players in the NFL, some of the best of their position at different points in time, all pros. And they got beat in a sloppy game in a rain mess in Ohio Stadium. So that is the history. And history is important to understand, because in history, 3 times, Michigan State, 98, 13, 15, beat Ohio State teams that were superiorly ranked in talent and had NFL dudes all over the place. And at least 2 of those teams, if not 3, could have potentially or should have potentially won the national championship that year. And so there is precedent for that. But I look at the Michigan State team this year, I don't really feel like it's on that same level. It doesn't have those same playmakers, those dudes. Like, it doesn't have the Plexico burst that they had in 98. That 2013 team was tough. It was gritty, had a really good defense. And the same thing in 2015, albeit they had a backup quarterback in their play. And Mark D'Antonio somehow Rumpelstiltskins that thing and spun a game into gold, and they were able to get enough big stops and went in and get a big kick at the end and ultimately win the game. But Ohio State this year, for their last 4 games, has scored 49 points, at least 49 points outside of Notre Dame. They've been rolling. That includes that Wisconsin game. And last year's game against Michigan State, a Spartan team that, like I said, won 11 games. It's 49-0 at half, 7 drives, 7 touchdowns, 49-0 against a team that was ranked in the top 15. Almost mind-blowing to think that could be the case. But honestly, I think that's going to be a lot of what you're going to see this year. So I'm going to give you 3, some guys to watch over on the green and white side. Number 1, you take a look at Peyton Thorne, their quarterback. Peyton Thorne's thrown 8 touchdowns, 6 interceptions this year. The interceptions are what have been the problem. Critical moments, he's coughed the ball up, and they haven't been near as good. Last season, he was much better at possessing the football and controlling the football, and didn't throw those costly turnovers. But he's the quarterback for him. He's a veteran guy. Last year, like I said, he was calm and steady. This year, he's been much more erratic, and that has led to much more erratic play out of the offense. Big player on the outside, Jaden Reed, transferred in from Western Michigan a couple years ago. Very talented player. This year on the season, he has 19 catches for about $190, 1 TD. A little bit of a slow start this year for him, as I think he was nicked up to start the season. Last year had almost 60 catches for over 1,000 yards and 10 touchdowns. So this guy has the playmaking ability. Jaden Reed, number 1, not the biggest dude, 6 foot, $185, but keep an eye on him. He's the guy on the outside that can test this Ohio State defense. He's one of them. Coleman, their other receivers, pretty good too, but I lean on Jaden Reed. Coleman's their leading receiver this year, but I watched Reed last year make a lot of plays, and I know that he has that inside of him and that ability. And then on the defensive side of the ball, Jacoby Windman. You're going to want to keep an eye on him. Edge player for him. Defensive end, hybrid outside linebacker, leads the NCAA in forced fumbles. He's 6th in the NCAA in sacks with 6.5, and he's got 11th in TFLs with 8. So he's their big time playmaker on defense. Here's the problem. This is where Sparty is really, really bad. They are 115th in passing defense this year for giving up 225, 275 through the game through the air. They're 63rd in their rush defense, giving up 136 on the ground. And they're 99th in total defense, averaging about 411 yards, giving up a game. Pass defense is terrible. And this is what happened last season with Ohio State. Ohio State's at the 15th ranked scoring D this year. Like they're playing great on offense or defense. They're getting it done over there. But looking at this Michigan State defense, their passing is bad. And that's why last year you watched Garrett Wilson and Chris Olave and Jackson Smith and Jigba just roast them with CJ Stroud. And so this year you're going to probably see a lot of the same. Now you're probably not going to see JSN, but then again, you're going to see Julian Fleming. You're going to see Marvin Harrison Jr. You're going to see talented receivers all over the place, like Ohio State has. Emeka Egbuka and everything that he can do. Like they're going to get these guys in there and they're going to have success because Michigan State can't guard anyone. Mel Tucker, who is a defensive backs coach by trade, has gotten more involved and gotten more hands-on to try to help solve these problems because they've been so bad through the air. And the only thing I think that's keeping them where they're at right now, because last year I think when they played Ohio State, they were 125th or something, is they haven't played enough games against good passing teams. After this week against Ohio State, I'm guessing Ohio State probably throws for at least 350 on them. That average is going to be creeping up even more, and they're going to be falling in the rankings and probably ranked somewhere in the mid-20s, maybe 130. Like this will be a bad situation for them. Look at the other side. Ohio State's defense, like I said, they've been money. They've been lights out. They've been playing really, really good football. They're 15th ranked scoring defense in the country. And that was a big question for everybody this year. Could this Ohio State defense take the big jumps under Jim Knowles? Well, I think we've seen that. Total defense is great. Rushing defense is phenomenal. And passing defense, yeah, you want all those things. Those are good. But the ultimate measure is scoring defense. And Ohio State's defense this year is ranked 15th in scoring defense, giving up less than 15 points a game. I know that's something that Jim Knowles takes pride in. I know that's something that Ryan Day is excited that they're playing that well. You're a 27-point favorite against a team that has a hard time getting stops. Offensively, they're not a whole heck of a lot better. And Peyton Thorne has been giving the ball away. So one area that you've been trying to work on and improve is the turnovers, and those are coming. But the defensive side of the ball should be a beatdown as well. And so I look at this game for Michigan State and try to figure out where there would be some advantages for them. And maybe Jacoby Windman can get some stuff going on the edge because he's a talented player out there. But outside of that, I'm not sure exactly where the plays are going to come for Michigan State. Now, some guys you want to watch for Ohio State. Mayan Williams, obviously 5 touchdowns last week. Do they keep feeding him? You need to keep him going. Him and Trey Henderson, we'll see how much Trey plays and if that's something that gets rolling. Zach Harrison, defensive end. It's been rumored moving him around a little bit. You slide him inside to get some rushman stuff going to get all their best players on the field. But, it'd be nice for Zach Harrison to start to break out here. He's gotten close. He's had a lot of pressures, just hasn't really converted into a ton of sacks. So it'd be fantastic for Zach Harrison to be able to do that. And then Denzel Burke, as he comes back from that hand injury. How ultimately does he look? And can he continue to improve and regain some of that form that he had last season? So those are some of the three guys to watch. Keep an eye on, as this game kind of works its way through. And then the 3 keys that will dive in ultimately to the game. Number 1, as I touched on with Mayan Williams, you want to keep the running game going with him and Trey. Depending on how much Henderson plays, if he gets in at all, we'll see how that ultimately breaks. But Mayan has been really good. He has been a workhorse. Both of those guys have been really solid when they've been on the field. And Ryan Day has made a point to come out and run the football on people and wanting to establish that. They can throw it all the time. They can throw it all over God's green earth. But Ryan realized like the toughness, that competitive stamina, all of those things that he preached, he wants to make sure that they come to fruition. And that to do that, you have to establish the running game, establish that ground and pound. And I think that that's huge to ultimately be able to do it. So look for him to continue to keep the running game going. Mentioned Zach Harrison. Number 2, big day for a defensive lineman. Peyton Thorne will cough the ball up now. He'll cough the ball up, especially if he gets pressure on him. 6 picks this year through 5 games. And that's something that he was good at last year, was controlling the football and not turning it over. But big day. You get, Jack Sawyer, moving him around, JTT, Hall, Harrison, the whole crew up there, rolling everybody through. Can you get to him? Can you impact Thorne so he can throw interceptions, get some strip sacks, and really catapult this defensive line? They've been the one unit. They played well. This defense has played really well. But I think the linebackers have played so well, and Steele and Tommy have been so great, then it's probably overshadowed the D-line. I would love to see just a dominant D-line performance. One where you let those guys ultimately go out and they get after it, and they get a lot of the numbers, and they get to have a lot of the statistics. They get the stats. They get the sacks. That's what I would like to see, is dominant D-line performance, because they played really good, but they statistically just hasn't shown up, especially in that sack category for them thus far. And then lastly, big day for the special teams. Played well last week for the most part. After the opening drive where Emeka Egbuka, fumbles it, it's windy, tries to revert, catch it over the shoulder, like that can get a little rough. You have the fake punt. You recognize the overload by Rutgers and Shiano. Shiano gets mad, gets upset about it. Hey, dude, you trying to win the game or not? You're playing to win. Well, we're just going to let you sit there and tee off on our guy. Punter reads it. Boom, I'm going to take off. But you didn't like to see the fumbled punt. You've seen some mismanaged kickoffs. Seen some penalties on special teams. I want to see a clean sheet. I want to see a special teams unit come out and dominate and play as well as they can. They're a well-coached group, but they've just had little things here or there. I want to make sure that they can hit on those and do a great job of playing a nice, complete, full game where you don't look at it and say, but if we were only better here, or if we would have just got that block, or just not committed that penalty, caught that clean, then it would have been a perfect day. Let's try to have the perfect day. Let's try to get that done on special teams. And lastly here, let's look at some of the other big games that are going around the country. Not a huge slate of stuff that's going on, just some things I like to watch and monitor, within the Big Ten, and then especially, what's going on nationally. Michigan's going to Indiana. They're 22.5-point favorites. They came off a nice victory against Iowa last week, beat them by 2 scores, were able to move the football against a very good Iowa defense. Indiana, who knows what they are. They lost to Nebraska. Cincinnati beat them up. They beat Illinois earlier this season. I don't feel like this is a great IU team, but just want to see if Michigan's able to come out, take care of business, get things going early, and put that thing in the books. Probably one of the best games of the day you're going to find. Tennessee, 8th ranked, traveling to Death Valley to take on LSU. LSU had a massive comeback last week against Auburn. They're able to get that done after being down 14 points early in the game. Tennessee was off. They're 2.5-point favorites. Pretty tight line. I think that goes to the impact of it being, game at LSU with Tennessee coming in. And this will be a nice big challenge for them. Tennessee, beat Florida 2 weeks ago, but this is going to be a far greater challenge. BYU and Notre Dame, game that's in Las Vegas. Almost wish I would have stayed out in Las Vegas for another couple days to be able to watch this thing. BYU is ranked 6th. Notre Dame was off last week. You got a big victory the week before that, couple score victory over Carolina. And this is going to be big for Notre Dame. If they can get this thing won and Marcus Freeman get the ball rolling in a big victory, it would be really important. I mean, BYU's favored in this game. I think BYU's a better team. right now. Notre Dame has to come in and play well, but this would be big, Buckeye fans, to get Notre Dame to ultimately win as many games as you think they can to bolster them. People want to get Notre Dame in the polls. They want to rank them. And so that'll give you another ranked victory should Notre Dame be able to start playing well. And then lastly, throw this out there. I don't know if it's going to be a close game. Last year was a big upset, which leads me to believe that they probably won't be able to do it 2 years in a row. But A&M heading to Alabama. It's on the road for A&M. Last year they were able to beat Bama at home. They're pretty substantial favorites. A&M, lost to Mississippi State last week, beat Arkansas the week before. Bama's coming off a big victory over Arkansas. Like, I don't know what A&M is. They lose the bad teams, then they beat Arkansas, beat a good team, lose to Mississippi State. It just, they're going to lose their minds down there with Jimbo Fisher. But if he can beat Nick Saban again, I think all will be well. Then they'll just be yelling at him about ultimately the consistency. But that's it for this edition of Carps Corner. So next week we'll have a nice little recap for you. Regular schedule again, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Get some mailbag, break down some other things, and really get it rolling. So thank you for tuning in. Is this worth the midway point now? College football season. We'll be on the bye week for the Buckeyes soon. But midway point, getting ready to roll. Thank you for tuning in. We appreciate all the support. Like, subscribe, comment. I'm going to try to give you all the great content. If you have any questions, please always put them in there, as we want to get those answered and make sure we're giving you as much insight and information and intel as I can. So thanks for tuning in. Until next time, talk to you soon.